are intelligent acts and are not distinct from each other. And the operation of the mind itself is an intelligent act. So for him, the self is defined in terms of behavior that is presented to the world, a view that is known in psychology as, kato, as I mentioned, behaviorism. And he further stressed that the dualistic conception of the mind and body and its integration by the Christian philosophers in the Middle Ages is a category mistake. Again, I would like to emphasize, he mentioned about this category mistake. So katudong mga philosophers who shared, who pointed about dualistic conception of the mind and the body, murag para sa iha medyo na mali ditong dapita. So the views of earlier philosophers, a type of informal fallacy in which things that belong to one groupings are mistakenly placed in another. So according to Ryle, mental acts are distinct from physical or distinct from physical acts. So his metaphor is described the distinction between the mind and the body as dogma of the ghost in the machine. So where he explained that there is no ghost or soul inside the machine, which is the body. So for him, very opposite sa previously discussed philosophers, para sa iya ha, there is no ghost or soul inside the body. Or para sa iya ang body, ang iyang gina-term is machine. So wala daw ghost, wala daw soul inside. He noted that human bodies are in space and are subject to the mechanical laws which govern all other bodies in space and are accessible to external observers. So that's the human bodies for him. Um, Accessible to external observers. So if you are looking at other people externally, ang kana imong nakita sa ilha, that's the human bodies where other people outside that particular body can observe. But minds are not in space. For him, ang minds are not in space, so their operations are not subject to mechanical laws, and the processes of the mind are not accessible to other people. So when the human bodies for him, ang human bodies can be accessed by other people, external observers, para sa iha ang mind, um, other people cannot access the mind of the of other another person or another human being. So you cannot access or you cannot see, you may not know what is running inside the mind of the person sitting beside you. So according to Ryle, a person therefore lives through two collateral histories, one consisting of what happens in and to his body, and other consisting of what happens in and to his mind. So the first is public and the second is private. So the first, the human body is the public part, and the second is the private, which is the mind. So he further emphasized that the category mistake happens when we think of the self as purely mental entity like the claim of Descartes. So again, the mind is existing but not space. So therefore, self does not exist anymore. So that's according to Gilbert Ryle. So very opposite to what Descartes claimed, the purely mental entity, di ba? The processing, the thinking thing, para sa iyaha, dili siya motoo, ana. That's a category mistake. And Ryle then focuses his attention primarily on human behavior or observable behavior. So from his perspective, the self is best understood as a pattern of behavior, the tendency or disposition for a person to behave in a certain way in a certain circumstances. So from being where we are able to gain concept of the self, for example, showing kindness, then that is you being yourself. So para sa iya ha, the self is on the pattern of behavior. If you are a person nga magsige og tabang sa uban, being generous, being kind, so that's a pattern of behavior, then for Gilbert Ryle, that is being yourself. That is the self that you have, the pattern of behavior. Mana para sa iya. So we encounter others, experience the totality of their behavior, and believe that this behavior reveals directly who they are and what they're thinking. So para sa iya ha, um, kanang imuha mga ginapakita, the pattern that you are showing to other people, then that becomes the self or your identity to others. So muna nang ikaw nga ginatawag. Very opposite sa katong mga previous philosophers. Lahi po to ilaha. Kani kay Gilbert Ryle na siya ginatawag or emphasis niya private and public part of view. But later on ang kaning duha that will give you the identity in terms of the pattern that you are showing. Okay? Okay. And so let us now proceed to Paul Churchland. Okay, Paul Churchland, for him, eliminative materialism. So he is a philosopher. He is a philosopher and professor known for his studies in neurophilosophy and the philosophy of the mind. So for Churchland, all things can be experienced through the senses, then exist, then exits. It is known that there is a close, intimate relationship between the mind and the body. So the health of our bodies, the things we ingest, the experiences we endure, all of these dimensions of our physical self have a profound effect on our mental and emotional functioning. So similarly, our emotional states, the way we think about things, our levels of stress, the optimism or the pessimism we feel, all of these dimensions of our mental self have a dramatic impact of our physical condition. So the assumption of this um, approach is that to fully understand the nature of the mind, we have to fully understand the nature of the brain. Okay, so ang kaning si Paul Churchland, since neuro neurophilosopher man siya or into neurophilosophy, um, he integrated the brain or the biological part of being human, specifically our neurons, our brains, in understanding the self. And whatever we ingest ourselves daw kanang ginakaon nato kanang whatever we do physically, we exercise, that can contribute to who we are. Okay, that can contribute to our actual self. So all feel these dimensions of our mental self. This have dramatic impact to our physical condition. So what is going on inside your brain, what is going on inside your mind, you're being positive, go lang ng go, and pessimistic or negative rapod kaayo, that can affect our physical condition. Okay. Um, Paul Churchland, okay. So for a church line, to better understand this, we need to develop a new neuroscience-based vocabulary that will enable us to think and communicate clearly about the mind, consciousness, and human experience. So he referred this term as eliminative materialism. So for um, Churchland, this concept claims that our ordinary common sense understanding, or what we call the folk psychology of the mind, is deeply wrong, and that some or all of the mental states posited by common sense do not actually exist. For example, we do not know what sleep is. Okay, so for example, we do not know what sleep is, so or why we have to have it despite spending a full third of our lives in that condition. So to assume an answer, people might say sleep is for rest. Okay? But that is a mistake answer. So even people are allowed to rest continuously, need their or their need for sleep is undiminished. So apparently sleep serves some deeper functions, but we do not know yet what they are. Okay? So para kay Paul Churchland, he is really against this common sense order taking or folk psychology. Kana galing, we are putting meaning to an action or to a thing. For example, he mentioned about the sleep. So para sa tua, we have to sleep, kailangan mag-sleep to rest. Okay? But technically or scientifically, there is an underlying reason why we need to sleep. But most of us, we refer sleep as resting. So, kailangan mag-sleep para mag-rest. But technically and scientifically, the very reason why we need to sleep or we have to sleep is other than resting. There is a deeper function about sleep. That's according to him. So, eliminative materialists believe that we need to develop a new vocabulary and conceptual framework that is grounded in neuroscience and that will be a more accurate reflection of human mind and self. So, for example, for depressed people, it is wrong to say he's out of his mind. Kung sa in English pa na kung naa sila okay, kung sa in English pa na they are using you're out of your mind if feeling nila kana nagpataka na lang og sulti kung sa ato pa na muro naman kag nabuang mga ginana nga mga term ba, but for him, if we are to look at for a deeper reason beyond what is observable, neuropsychiatry would give info that there is possible brain damage kung sa kuan pa na siya, neuropsychiatry kay psychiatry pa na siya nga term. If moingon tag you're out of your mind, automatically there's a possible brain damage. But we keep on using terms nga kanang ginapa-exaggerate nato ang tawag niya ba. And for him, dili siya pro ana dira dapita. So in general, the sense of self originated from the brain itself, and that this self is a product of electrochemical signals produced by the brain. And um, actually, if we are to kung naata sa particular machine that can give us electrochemical signals para makita nato the actions that we do changes our brain activity as we shift to one activity to another. So, ang kanang electrochemical signals mag-usab-usab siya sa atong parts sa ato ang brain sa kani nga pwede nanitan karon ni kanta ka ni kalit ka og saya ni nagstorya na pug ka, ang electrochemical sa atong brain ang kanang signal is mag-usab-usab. Okay? So para kay Paul Churchland, the self is originated from the brain itself. Okay, from the brain itself, and that this self is a product of electrochemical signals produced by the brain. It is not actually ang katong pang sulti sa uban, just the reasoning, just the thinking. But for Paul Churchland, it's about the electrochemical signals produced by the brain. Kung um, nabuang daw ang tao para sa iyaha, ngayon nabuang-buang, um, that's because na is something wrong sa iyang brain. Na siya ginatawag ng brain damage. That person is not the actual person technically, but because of brain damage, we can say nga, mao na gyud na siya kay para kay Paul Churchland, um, kung unsa tong what is happening inside your brain, the biological brain, okay? What is happening inside your brain, the electrochemical signals, kana mga neurons, inana. Unsa man iyang gina-produce, then actually, that is yourself. That is you. And then, naay something wrong about yourself if naay brain damage nga ginatawag. Okay? kung maguba gali na siya ang functioning sa imong brain, then most likely maguba pud ang imong ang self. Maguba pud siya ang self na error nga ginatawag. So motong gi mention niya ganina, the emotional states, whatever we ingest, tanan nga gipang butang nato sa atong kaugalingon that will really affect or impact our physical condition. And our physical condition is of course part of our being, part of our self. Okay. So he believed that to fully understand the nature of the mind, we have to fully understand the nature of the brain. Okay, that's for Paul Churchland. Scientist mo gud kaayo siya, neurologist kaayo iyang approach. So technically the brain is equal to, I mean the self is equal to the brain. Mao ang iyang idea of the self. Okay. So your mental state daw is equivalent to your brain states. So whatever you are thinking right now, kung unsa ba na siya, positive or negative, that's because of your brain status. A person who would like to, unsa ba, mukalit siya ambak dira, iyan ang nabuhat, iyan ang buhaton because of his or her brain status. Again, the mental state of the person is equivalent to the brain status. Dili lang daw na siya agad-agad nga nag-process dira. Naa daw something wrong sa brain. Kung nakahuna-huna og dili maayo ang isa ka tao, kung di na ganahan maligo ang isa ka tao, that's because of the brain status. There is something wrong biologically inside your brain. So that's for Paul Churchland. Time we will proceed to Husserl and Merleau-Ponty. So for them, the self is or embodies subjectivity. So the um, German thinker Edmund Husserl introduced a very different approach that came to be known as phenomenology. So it refers to the conviction that all knowledge of ourselves and our world is based on the phenomena of experience. Um, I know phenomenology is familiar with you. So from Husserl's standpoint, the experience of ourself as a unity in which the mental and physical are seamlessly woven together. So the philosopher Merleau-Ponty, okay, si Merleau-Ponty, articulated the phenomenologist position in a simple declaration nga, I live in my body. So this means an entity that can never be objectified or known in a completely objective sort of way as opposed to the body as object of the dualist. For instance, so when you first wake up in the morning and experience, you're gradually expanding awareness of where you are and how you feel. Your first thoughts of the day, like saying, I'm glad to have this new day, I refers to a single integrated entity, a blending of mental, physical, and emotional structured around the core identity of yourself. So every time we wake up in the morning, kanagaling, you're acknowledging what is happening at that very moment. For example, pag mata ni mong maingon ka, atubang ka sa amin, thank you for this day, Lord. Thank you for unsa ba, whatever you are thankful of. Thankful kay Thank you, Lord, kay nakamata pa ko kana mga inana. You are aware that you are still alive. You are aware that you are still breathing. Okay? You're aware that you are here. That's phenomenology. What is happening? What is happening sa karon? Okay? So Merleau-Ponty rejected the Cartesian mind-body dualism and insisted that the mind and body are intrinsically connected. As he noted, there is not a duality of substances, but only the dialectic of living being in its biological milieu. So, in other words, our living body is a natural synthesis of the mind and biology, and any attempts to divide them into separate entities are artificial and nonsensical. So, for example, you are dancing, playing a sport, or performing musically. What is your experience of yourself? So, most likely, you're completely absorbed in the moment. So, your mind and body functioning as one integrated identity. So, kung natin ginatawag katong i-mention ni katong Cartesian mind-body dualism, katong nila Rene Descartes, nila Socrates, nila Plato, katong the presence of the mind and body. Para kay Merleau-Ponty, dili siya actually separate. Kay when you are doing something, dili man nimo ma-separate ang your feeling or what is happening inside your brain kasi nga they are functioning as one. They are being integrated as one entity. So kung musayaw ka, mukanta ka, you are not thinking separately nga nagunahuna ka tapos ning kalit og lihok imong tiil. Wala man siya. While you are doing that, you are enjoying the moment as if isa lang siya. Okay? Isa lang siya. Ang mind and body, they are synchronized when it is functioning. So, ang mind and body. So, that's according to Merleau-Ponty. Mo po na siyang iyahang idea. Again, I would like to repeat, si Edmund Husserl is more on the phenomenological standpoint. The experience of ourself as a unity in which the mental and physical are seamlessly woven together. Moning gikuyog ni silang duha, moning gikuyog ni silang duha kay pare-parehas man ilang point of view. The self is embodies subjectivity, meaning to say, your idea of the self depends on how you see it. Lahi-lahi tag pantanaw sa atong kaugalingon, my idea of myself is different. Kaya ginatawag siyang subjective, and your classmates' idea of themselves are different. So kanya-kanya ta. Sa mo nang para sa ilaha, we have different ideas or understanding of ourselves. Okay? Because it depends on how we see it. If most of you here or there are some of you here na mata gani ng buntag nga good mood, naapoy uban nga bad ang ihang mood. So depende siya sa ato ang pagtan-aw sa situation. Then for Merleau-Ponty, katong ihang idea, most likely pare-parehas gihapon the here and now. Ilamang kung ang ilahang point is what is happening right now. Okay, what is happening right now. He opposed the idea of katong the body and soul as katong separate. Duha na sila kabuok. They are functioning differently. Pero kay Merleau-Ponty, they are functioning as one integrated identity. Dili siya separate. Kaya if ever i-separate daw na siya, di daw na siya tinuod, artificial na daw na siya. Okay, again, kato akong example, if you are singing, if you are eating, or if you are doing something, you are not thinking and then usapan nimo buhaton, most likely sabay na gyud na siya as one. Okay? So that's for Husserl and Merleau-Ponty. Dara. Again, we experience ourselves as a unity in which the mental and physical are seamlessly woven together. So fully rejected Plato and Descartes mo to iyang ingon. So if we honestly and accurately examine our direct and immediate experience of ourselves, the mind-body problems fall away. Okay? So kung ang imong hunaon is kung what is really happening right now, the experience of it. So dili na kailangan pa magunahon na sa problema aning duha kaning the mind and body. If you are actually thinking of what is going on, what is happening right now. So the aspects of our experience is that is most real is kanina tawag na the lived world, which is the fundamental ground of our being and consciousness, the Lebenswelt or the lived world, motong phenomenology na term. the live world, what is happening right now. Okay, so that's it for Husserl and Ponti, Merleau-Ponty. And this time, we will proceed to Sigmund Freud. So for him, natay ginatawag na self as multi-layered. So he is well known for his contribution, which is the psychoanalysis. He is a very famous is very famous in the theories of personalities sa psychology ng world. Kani si Sigmund Freud. And I think some of you here are familiar who Sigmund Freud is, kung kinsa man ni siya. Murag na agian na ninyo ni siya before. So among all the psychologists or mga theorists, isa si Sigmund Freud sa pinakasikat. Is very well known in the psychology world. So Freud's view of the self was multi-layered or multi-tiered. So he did not accept the idea of single entity in the notion of the self. So di siya motuon ng katong giingon ni Edmond Husserl and Maurice Merleau-Ponty nga single entity. Para sa iya or integrated. Para kay Sigmund Freud, tulo ka buok na tulo ka layer ang self. So Freud suggested um, that there are three conscious or levels of the mind. Okay, later na lang. Pwede mo makuha. We have the conscious, the preconscious or subconscious, and the unconscious. Mo ni siya ang level sa level sa level of the mind. So conscious daw, the conscious part deals with awareness of present perceptions, the feelings, thoughts, memories, and fantasies at any particular moment. So while you are sitting there, while you are listening to me, kung unsa man ang nagdagan sa inyong hunahuna or yung nakita karon, whatever it is, that's part of your conscious mind. Okay? That's part of your conscious mind. And while ang kaning preconscious or subconscious related to data that can be readily be brought to consciousness. For example, all the lessons you have studied the night before the day of the examination. Kumbaga, kanang kabalo na mo daan, pero dili pa ninyo siya kinahanglan at the moment. By the time nga kayo kinahanglan ninyo siya during examination, for example, nag-study na mo the night before, ang kato siya nga information nga inyohang na studyhan the night before the examination, nakastore na to siya sa inyohang brain, part of your mind. Nakastore na to sa preconscious level. And then by the time na kinahanglan na siya, that's the time nga mo take over na siya, maabot na po siya sa conscious level ninyo. Kay while nagbaklay mo, nagkaon mo, dili man siguro ang katong gisadihan ninyo ang sige dagan sa inyong hunahuna unless inaana mo nga pagkatao, di ba? Nga kanang dili makabuhat o isa ka butang kay sige hunahuna sa katong mga niagi na. So imbis na nasa pre-conscious, naabot na sa conscious. For example, other example, kanang inyong pangalan, kanus amo gianak, kinsa inyong first kiss, kanang mga inana nga information, nakastore na sa inyong subconscious or preconscious. Kanang readily available. By the time na yung mga utana sa inyo or kinahanglanon ninyo, automatic na may tubag. Di na mo kailangan maghuna-huna pag ito the highest level. What is your name? Kay Ana. Kaya dili man consciously nagsikaguna-huna sa imong pangalan, di ba? Dili man consciously sikaguna-huna kano sa kagianak. So by the time makinahanglanon sa usa pa siya mo gawas. And kani pong subconscious kanang nagabit ang inyong heart, naga-inhale mo, naga-exhale, that's part of your day-to-day activity, pero dili niyo siya napansin kaayo, wala kay mo na yung na fully aware nga, hala nagabit akong heart, hala naga-inhale ko, naga-exhale ko, dili kay ninyo na siya mapansin, but that's really part of your existence. Part na siya sa inyong kinabuhi, nagmata mo, natulog mo, nagpitik na ang inyong dughan, nag-inhale o nag-exhale. Pero karon kaniingon man ko nga kanang pag-inhale nyo, pag-exhale, ma-conscious na pod hinuon mo, magunahuna na hinuon mo, hala bitaw no, nag-inhale ko, nag-exhale. Then the idea of that will move on to your conscious level. So, ma-conscious na hinuon mo, hala na conscious na noon ko, nagsige na ako ginhawa, inhale, exhale. Pero kung wala ko na gi-bring out, wala na pod na. Dili po siya pwede nga malimtan totally kay kung makalimot mo ginhawa mamatay jud. So dili siya ingon nga nalimtan. Naa lang siya sa ato ang subconscious level. Okay. And then the last level is the unconscious. This refers to the data remained but not easily available to the individual's conscious awareness. This also refers to our primitive impulses, for example, our sexual aggressiveness, our desire for death, unfulfilled wishes, and childhood fantasies. Ginatawag siya unconscious kay part siya sa atoa pero lalom naa siya nakabutang sa lalom nga part sa ato ang mind. Kinahanglan pa siya i-journey. Kinahanglan pa siya og daghang session para mobalik og mubutang sa conscious level nimo. And this unconscious part of our mind is kanang delikado. Tawag nga delikado kay this might affect our present self. Okay? Makaapekto ni siya sa most likely sa desisyon nato nga buhaton. Matingala ka nganong inani man ko kahadlokan, nganong inani man ko ka conscious, nganong mahadlok man jud ko every time mo sulod ko aning ngit-ngit nga lugar nga wala ka kabalo sa reason. Nganong mahadlok man jud ko inani, nganong mahadlok man jud ko ginana. Those situations most likely because of your unconscious mind. Naay mga reason that happened during your childhood years, for example, or even gibuntis pa ba ka sa imong mama or baby pa ka, nahitabo ato nga time nga na-register sa imong mind. Unya wala lang pud nimo siya ginaman kay syempre baby pa man ka. And by the time nga karon, mura kag kabalo man jud ko ani ba unsa man gyud niya, unsa man gyud ni siya. Nana dira sa imong brain pero maglisod kag tubag, maglisod kag tugkad kung unsa na siya. And ang kaning part sa atong unconscious self, this needs therapy. Especially kung naka-affect na siya sa atong day-to-day life. Kinahanglan na gyud mo nang kinahanglan nga musik og psychiatrist o psychologist, counselor. Okay, these people can help you discover and put the unconscious part of yourself or of your mind to the conscious level. So sila ang makatabang mo journey sa imuha. Kung ikaw lang magsikag una-una sa problema nga wala ka kabalo, mo na siya. Manang delikado ni siya ang kaning unconscious. Okay? So Freud later developed a three structural model of the mind that divided it according to mental functions. Ang kaning ihang kaning the id, the ego, and the superego. Okay. When we say id, it is the biological component of personality. At birth, a person is all id. So storehouse of instinct and libido, which is the primary source of psychic energy, ang kaning id. It operates in accordance with pleasure principle in order to rule out and reduce tension, avoid pain, and gain pleasure. Anything pleasurable, kanang gusto nimo, I want. Ang id daw ang naga take over ana. Siya daw nagaingon nga, uy, lami lagi mo kaon og ice cream, lami lagi mo kaon og kuan, lami lagi gusto lagi ko ina. Anything daw nga ana nga decision, that's because of your id. While ang kaning kuan, ang kaning ego, this is the rational or the psychological component of personality. the seat of intelligence, which makes it rational and establishes his contact with external world of reality. So siya ang naga-mediate. So kung magsobraan na daw ni si id o kaning si super ego. Okay, balikan nato ni si ego. Si kaning si super ego, um, this is the social component or the moral side of personality, judicial branch of personality, which concerns about whether an action is good or bad, right or wrong, and strives for perfection, internalizes standards of parents and society. Kana galing mahadlok ko kay basig masuko si mama, dapat inani akong buhaton, dapat inani mo na ang super ego nimo. And then ang ego ang naga mediate. Can you remember philosopher that also mentioned three part of self or the three part self nga somewhat pare-parehas ani? Can you remember who that philosopher is? Pero ang kaning kay Sigmund Freud, um, technically mo og din iha basta id pleasure mga gusto sa ego I think mo siya nag-evaluate super ego konsensya nimo mo na yung dapat nimong buhaton mo na iha so on the other hand or in one hand there are criticism on Freud's concept of the self so napo day mga criticisms okay. Freud's concept of the unconscious is of a place, a timeless, unknowable realm or entity that exerts a profound and continual influence over conscious thoughts, emotions, and behavior. And there are questions that philosophers posted about it. So I mentioned earlier nga ang kaning katong unconscious part of ourself. Itong ingon that's very ano galing delikado kaayo and unexplainable part of ourself. Mo na siyang unknown part of ourself. Mo na ang ginacritic sa uban nga mga philosophers and morning ilahang mga questions sa idea ni Freud about the unconscious. Where exactly does this realm exist? So, who exactly is this identity and what is its relation to our conscious self? Okay, muna isa sa pangutana. Doesn't Freud's model fragment the human mind into a collection of parts, multiple selves, and enigmatic relationships to one another? Okay. And don't we end up with two, I think, one conscious and one unconscious? Mo na mga pangutana. Um, Mamanguni nga part sa atong pagkatao sa basic explanation ni Freud nga kanang walay explanation kanang the unknown part of the self kanang itong sa Johari window ninyo kung familiar mo ato katong facade kato siya nga part sa atong self atong hidden ang kaning unconscious is wala ko kabalo o wala ka kabalo mo ni siya nga part sa atong self nga kinahanglan pag siya i-journey so naga-question ang mga philosopher since unknown man ni siya nga part sa self ano unsa man siya na duha na ka part sa self na ang unconscious ug ang unconscious so mo nang ilang mga pangutana nganong nahimo siyang part sa self nga wala gyud siya nahibal-an unknown gani siya so mo nang ilang mga pangutana but with Freud specifically sa psychological na perspective ang kaning unconscious para sa iya nahimo siyang famous for this sa term ang yung ginatawag kaning psychoanalysis he is very famous sa psychoanalysis niya wherein the person seeking for help psychologically will be journeyed by kanang sharing what happened sa iyang past. Okay? So, ang therapist, mangutana about sa nahitabo sa iyang kliyente, kinabuhi sa kliyente niya, katong mga sila unang panahon. Sa unang panahon pa, katong pag-anak pa, based sa iyang nahibawan, tong baby pa siya, inana siya. And that can help somewhat makatabang siya nga ma-discover mabutang sa conscious level ang unconscious part sa atong self. Though trabahoso lang ni kay it will take so much time bago siya mahuman or bago maka-come up og solution sa particular nga problem sa isa ka kliyente kaniya kuan. But anyway, after this presentation, after the philosophical point of view, we will proceed sa psychological point of view. Okay? Sa psychological point of view, and then we will know later on unsa po'y difference sa philosophical o sa psychological point of view. Though kani si Sigmund Freud, philosophical siya nabutang, pero technically he is a famous psychologist and theorist. So napod ni siya mo ning naa siya nakabutang sa last kay dako pod kay ni siya contribution sa psychological perspective kaning, for example, specifically kaning the unconscious mind, and later on this will be further discussed sa mga other psychologists. Okay, so muna siya. And in summary, no, the self is how you behave. Okay, the self is how you behave. This behavioristic can be better explained through the lens of behaviorism. So hence Ryle has pointed out how man creates self through his or her behavior. Also Churchland has emphasized that coming with a new concept to better understand man's existence is essential. As such, the concept of Husserl and Ponti to focus on human experience to describe the self, and Simon Freud, however, expanded the unknown realm concept of early philosophers, and he believed in the significant role of the unconscious as a determiner of behavior and personality. And by the way, kani siya, additional na lang pod, Sigmund Freud, kaning evidence sa unconscious, the existence of unconscious, kaning slip of the tongue, kanagay magsige mo, ah, slip of the tongue is normal conversation unya ning kalit siya gawas sa inyong baba unconsciously dili unta nimo intentional nga isulti o ning kalit siya og gawas. That is one evidence daw of the existence of the unconscious. And then kana po daw atong damgo, kanang magsigita og damgo og inani wa ka kabaro ngano nagdamgo og inani. That is also the one evidence that explains the existence of unconscious. And we can never simply accept our conscious thoughts and overt behavior at face value. So there is always the possibility that there are hidden unconscious meaning and motivations causing and influencing them. Okay. So muna siya iyang kuan. And again, as I mentioned, we will further explain the psychological perspective of the self next meeting na lang siya. So you can